Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible legal documents on the planet, the Constitution of India. Now, this is way more than just a rulebook. It's the very blueprint for the world's largest democracy, and we're about to explore the brilliant and, sometimes contradictory ideas that make it so absolutely unique.
So, what's the secret sauce here? What is it that makes the Indian Constitution stand out as one of the most fascinating and complex governing documents ever put to paper? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to tackle.
All right, to really get what makes it so special, you first have to wrap your head around its most obvious feature: its incredible, almost unbelievable size.
I'm not kidding. It holds the undisputed title of being the world's longest written constitutional document. And that's not just a fun fact for a trivia night, it's absolutely fundamental to how it's designed and what it tries to do.
In fact, people often describe it as elephant-sized. So why on earth is it so massive? What led its creators to draft such a detailed, all-encompassing document?
Well, it really came down to a perfect storm of four key factors. First off, you've got the sheer size and diversity of India itself. You need a lot of rules to govern a country that complex. Second, the framers had a template to work from, the Government of India Act of 1935, which was already a beast. Third, they made a really big decision. Instead of having separate constitutions for the central government and the states, they packed it all into one. And finally, the assembly was packed with brilliant lawyers who, well, let's just say they like to be thorough.
But, its size is really only half the story. The Constitution is also this remarkable mosaic, a beautifully crafted blend of some of the best ideas on governance from all around the world.
And they didn't just pull these ideas out of thin air. No way. They did their homework. They went through the constitutions of about 60 different countries to pick and choose the best features for India.
And you can see this greatest hits approach right here. They took the parliamentary system they knew from the British, but then they blended it with powerful American ideas like judicial supremacy and a strong list of fundamental rights. They even looked to Ireland for ideas on how the state should guide its policy. This wasn't just copying, it was a really creative synthesis. But if we have to point to the single biggest source of inspiration, especially for the administrative nuts and bolts, it is hands down the Government of India Act of 1935. Something like 250 provisions from that old colonial-era act were tweaked and put right into the new constitution.
So all this borrowing and adapting led to what you can only call the Great Balancing Act. It was this deliberate, super intelligent effort to create a unique mix of powers that was just right for India.
Let's look at the first major balancing act. The framers had to pick between two really powerful but clashing ideas. On one side, you've got the British system, where Parliament is the supreme power. On the other, you have the American system, where the courts, the Supreme Court, have the final say.
So which way did India go? Well, in a stroke of genius, it kind of chose both, and at the same time, neither. This created a really unique dynamic. The Supreme Court can declare laws unconstitutional, but Parliament can then turn around and amend the Constitution itself. It's this constant push and pull, governed by what's known as the basic structure doctrine, meaning Parliament can change almost anything except for the absolute core principles of the Constitution. It's a fascinating dance.
This balancing act also shows up in how the Constitution can be changed. The framers had another choice to make. Do you make it rigid and really hard to change, like the US Constitution? Or do you make it flexible and easy to update, like the British one?
And you guessed it, the answer was a blend of both. Some parts can be changed by a simple majority vote in Parliament, just like passing a regular law. But to change the really important fundamental stuff, you need a much tougher special majority. This is what makes the Constitution a truly living document, one that's stable but can still adapt and evolve.
And all of these clever balances are there for one reason: to protect the absolute cornerstones of Indian democracy. You get an independent court system that can check the government's power. You get guaranteed fundamental rights that citizens can rely on. And you get universal adult franchise, which means every single adult gets a voice in how they're governed.
This ability to adapt is probably its most important feature. So for this final section, let's look at the actual tools that allow the Constitution to stay relevant and evolve right alongside the nation. If you want a perfect example of just how much it can change, look no further than the 42nd Amendment Act from 1976. This one amendment was so huge, it made so many big changes all across the document that it's famously known as a mini-constitution all by itself. The Constitution also has a kind of built-in emergency mode. During a major national crisis, the whole system can temporarily transform. It can shift from a federal structure to a highly centralized unitary one.
Power flows to the central government, giving it the muscle it needs to protect the nation's integrity when it's under threat.
And finally, there's a feature that was born directly out of the painful history of partition: single citizenship. Unlike in a place like the USA, there's no such thing as state citizenship in India. You're a citizen of India, period. This was a powerful, deliberate choice made to build a single national identity and prevent regional loyalties from overriding it.
So, it's pretty clear the Indian Constitution is no dusty old relic. It is a dynamic, living, breathing document, a masterclass in balancing power and adapting to the times. The big question for the future is this: as India continues to transform at an incredible pace, how will this amazing balancing act continue to protect rights, manage power, and guide the nation into the future?